create new spiritual things? If the Vedas are eternal, what kind of new spiritual system or practices might an Acharya make?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Acharya has to adapt the Vedic system for the time and the conditions. Okay? For example, Śrīla Prabhupada, when he came to America, he started giving initiation to women, even Brahminical initiation. This had never been done before. You see? But due to the political and social climate in the West, if he had not made this adjustment, then he would not have been successful. Why? Because in Western society we have this idea that men and women are equal. It's not true, but that's what people think. So in order to adjust the presentation, not the teaching itself, but the presentation of the teaching in the West, Śrīla Prabhupada accepted initiating women. It led to all kinds of problems. I mean, anytime that you have men and women mixing intimately, there's going to be all kinds of problems because of sex desire. So he accepted that. He also accepted people who would never be accepted in a spiritual school in India, like homosexuals. Prabhupada pretty much accepted everybody because he was starting from scratch. He had no help from his godbrothers, just like we do. He had no help. Because Prabhupada did not accept the nonsense politics in Gaudiya Math. Just like we don't accept the nonsense politics in ISKCON. Same situation. So he had to start from scratch. Now, we have a little bit different situation because we don't claim to be Nitya Siddha, eternally liberated soul like Śrīla Prabhupada. We're just a sadhana siddha, someone who attained self-realization by sadhana in this lifetime. So actually we have much less qualification, much less potency than Śrīla Prabhupada, and that's all right. We're just doing our duty according to our means. But we find that, for example, to deal with the complexity of householders and marriage relationships and children and all of that is very, very difficult for us. We're used to this simple life of celibacy and the association of just brahmacharis. And for us to deal with householders and all of this is very complicated, you know? All of a sudden everything is so much more difficult and everything takes so much more time and it's just very hard for us. So we have reverted back to pretty much the original style of Gaudiya Vaishnava society, which before the time of Bhakti Vinod, or up to the time of Bhakti Vinod, was propagated mostly by Babajis. They didn't have sannyasis. Sannyasis were the exception, because sannyasi, the tradition of sannyas actually comes from the Mayavadi Sampradāya. See? So we're renunciants, which is also Vedic, but we didn't take the formality of sannyas. But in our time, sannyas has also become perverted by this institutional politics. And now sannyas means, if I take sannyas from an ISKCON guru, I can only preach in ISKCON. I can't preach in Gaudiya Math. I can't preach to the Ramanandis. I can't go anywhere. I can only go in ISKCON and preach, and that's the only place that accepts me as a bona fide sannyasi. But wait a minute, sannyas means that you give up this idea of material designations. That I come from this family, I come from this country, I come from this religion, I come from this organization. See, that's the meaning of sannyas. You give up all these things. So to take sannyas, and then the result is I can only preach to this particular organization, seems very contradictory to me. So I didn't like to take sannyas. Also, I actually searched for a sannyas guru for about 10 years. Once I got into this mood of renunciation, I looked around different Vaishnava organizations, and I couldn't find anybody that I could accept sannyas from. Because this politics, you see, if they're giving a kind of sannyas that's only limited to their organization, that's not the real sannyas. Like one Gaudiya Math guru said, well, I'm not going to give you sannyas because you're not preaching in Gaudiya Math. Actually, he didn't even get to say anything about it. His disciples decided this for him. Oh, do you want to join our group? No, I don't want to join your group. I just want sannyas. Oh, no, we can't. We don't do that. But then what's the meaning of sannyas? They've changed the meaning of sannyas, you see. So I decided to just take Babaji. This is another adjustment. But we haven't had any Babaji in our movement for 2-3 generations now. You see? So I'm basically the first disciple in our lineage for 3 generations to take Babaji. Babaji is just an informal thing. You just, you're not bound to any particular organization, any group. You just have your disciples around you, and you basically withdraw from the world and you practice spiritual life pretty much independently. And that's what was going on before the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And we think that's a good system. So the Acharyas have made different adaptations, not in the teaching, but in the presentation of the teaching, according to the time, the circumstances, the conditions, the needs of the time. It has to be that way because the material world is always changing. That's the nature of this material world. Everything is constantly in flux. And especially now, we're at a time when things are changing very rapidly. So we have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable. Otherwise we'll be left behind, we'll become dinosaurs, we'll become obsolete. Before I started preaching, I did some marketing research. I literally put on a tie, and nice clothes, and I went down to Waikiki where there's thousands of tourists. And I had a clipboard, and a pen, and I went around doing a survey. And basically my survey is, what do you think of the Hare Krishnas? Of course I had a few preliminary questions just to warm people up, and then a few other questions just for analytical purposes, demographics and so on. But the core of my survey was really, what is your opinion of the Hare Krishnas? And I got almost 100% negative response. Almost 100%, more than 99% negative. So my conclusion was, I can't preach under the name of Hare Krishna. I'm going to have to come up with another name. It's the same teaching, but we call it the Esoteric Teaching. Esoteric Teaching of the Vedas, or whatever. And often, I get a lot of static, I get a lot of criticism from different devotees. But why aren't you teaching the Hare Krishna mantra? Why aren't you saying that you're a Hare Krishna devotee and like that? Well, because if I did, nobody would listen. I mean, it's hard enough getting people to listen as it is. But if I did that, I wouldn't get anybody to listen. You see? That's just the time that we're living in. I'm not responsible for that. My godbrothers did that. They burned out the preaching field. They ruined the reputation of the Hare Krishna movement. And I don't think this was an accident. I know the behind-the-scenes story. So I had to change the name. You see? And this is true of every acharya, every guru, every teacher in our line. That there's some unique circumstance, some unique situation that they have to meet. They have to adapt. And if they don't adapt, they can't be successful. So it's not that we change the teaching. It's not that we change the core philosophy or the practices. But we simply adapt the presentation and we build a bridge. That's why we call our community the bridge community. Because it builds a bridge between the standard, eternal Vaishnava philosophy and the present condition of human society, whatever